Welcome to Ramblings with Joe. This is the last in the series of your party ignoring what you want, and specifically not one party, but both parties. And this list consisted of 10 things that the majority of each party wants and the party leadership continues to ignore. And today's topic is congressional stock trading. I think that we can all recognize that Congress people and the president, for that matter, have inside information about procedures and policies that they're enacting that might affect the price of stocks. And if they know this information and they act on that information before that information is made public, then they have the upper hand and they can make a lot of money doing that.
Spot on. You nailed the core issue. Lawmakers get non-public info on policies that can move markets, and trading on it before the rest of us creates an unfair edge. That's exactly why this topic fires people up across the aisle.
Let's get right to the numbers right off the bat.
Polls consistently show overwhelming support across the board. The most cited recent figures put it at about 87% of Republicans, 88% of Democrats, and 81% of independents who want to ban members of Congress from trading individual stocks. It's one of the rare issues where pretty much everyone agrees.
So when you say trading individual stocks, I'm pretty much okay with the Congress and president being able to be a part of a fund where someone else is trading it for them. The problem is when they go in and they trade, stock XYZ, and then the next day they enact something that makes XYZ pretty much worthless. They've gotten rid of it and they've made their money and everybody else is left holding the bag.
Exactly. The real problem is the direct, self-directed trading of individual stocks, where they can time buys and sells around their own legislative actions. Blind trusts or broad index funds managed by someone else solve that conflict without forcing them to sit in cash.
Can you give me an example of a congressman doing that type of situation and it being blatantly obvious?
A strong one is Senator Richard Burr back in 2020. As chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, he got classified briefings on how bad COVID-19 was going to get. Days later, he sold off between $600,000 and $1.7 million in stocks right before the market crashed. The timing was so tight, it triggered an FBI investigation.
And was he convicted of anything?
No, Burr was never convicted. The DOJ and SEC both investigated him, but closed the cases without charges. Proving he traded specifically on the classified briefing, rather than other reasons, turned out to be too tough.
So here's what the crux of the problem. When you are in that leadership role, a senator, a congressperson, or a president, you don't always have something very obvious. This was something that was obvious, but they couldn't prove it. Appearance that they are being crooked and they are doing insider trading. I believe the man was probably guilty of insider trading. I don't know how to get around that other than setting up a blind trust or, being part of a bigger fund when you take that leadership role. How many senators or congressmen have been convicted because they were doing insider trading with information that they garnered because they were leaders?
0. No member of Congress has ever been convicted of insider trading using non-public information they got from their official role. The only conviction was Chris Collins, and that was from his corporate board seat, not legislative info. That's exactly why the appearance problem you mentioned is so tough to fix.
It is something that the people want overwhelmingly. I didn't get one figure from you there, Grok. What percentage of Americans want this changed overall?
86% of Americans overall want Congress banned from trading individual stocks.
This isn't a majority. This isn't a supermajority. This is an overwhelming majority. And the overwhelming majority of Americans want this fixed. They want individual stock trading to stop from these representatives that we have up in Congress. And do you think they're going to do that? Even though 86% of Americans want this changed, do you think your party leaders are going to go in there and tie their hands so that they can't use this information to make money? I don't think they are. Grok, what are the chances of the next cycle of Congress to put this forward and have this passed?
The House actually passed a partial version of this just last month, banning new stock purchases but letting them keep what they already own. It's sitting in the Senate now with basically zero momentum. I'd put the odds of a real, meaningful ban passing in the next cycle at under 20%. Self-interest is a hell of a drug.
Let's head back to that favorite topic of lip service. Who all passed it in the House? What majority, what percentage of congressmen from each party passed this bill?
It passed the House 232 to 198 on July 22nd. Every single Republican voted yes, plus 13 Democrats and 1 independent. So basically 100% of Republicans and about 6% of Democrats.
Now, you said it stopped in the Senate. That means it doesn't have any momentum. Do you think, I'm talking to the audience now, do you think that they didn't know that was going to happen so that they passed this and that would look good when they went to run for office? Do you think that the freaking Republicans did this with the intent of it actually being passed in the Senate? Or do you think that they did this so that it would look like they wanted this reform? And my personal opinion is they did it because it looks like they wanted that reform. Grok, why did the Democrats say they wouldn't vote for this bill in the House of Representatives?
Democrats mostly voted against it because the bill was weak. It only banned new stock purchases, but let members keep everything they already owned, and it didn't touch the president or vice president. On top of that, Republicans tacked on a voter ID requirement that had nothing to do with stocks, which Democrats called a poison pill. They saw the whole package as more political theater than real reform.
Lip service. That's what it was. It was just lip service, and now it's sitting in the Senate with no momentum, which means that the senators are actually not going to vote for voter ID. It's amazing that we still allow these representatives to put these rider bills on top of the core bill that's being passed. It's never just a bill. Congress had the House of Representatives put forward a bill that said, we don't want any more stock trading on an individual stock basis by any representative of Congress or Senate. Without that voter ID bill, if they had just put that forward, how many representatives in the House on the Democratic side of the aisle would have voted for that, do you think?
Democrats have been pushing for a real ban for years, and the main reasons they tanked this one were the weak language and the voter ID rider. A clean bill just on stock trading would have pulled way more Democratic votes.
I mean, when it got to the Senate, when this bill got to the Senate, this hypothetical bill, do you think that this bill would have had any momentum in the Senate?
A clean bill without the voter ID rider would have had real momentum in the Senate. There's genuine bipartisan support for the idea, with multiple clean versions introduced by both parties over the years. It still wouldn't be easy, but it would have a fighting chance instead of being dead on arrival.
I think fighting chance is probably very optimistic. My personal opinion is they're not going to tie their hands on this particular case because they want to make that money. They want that insider information so that they can protect their portfolio or their money. And I don't believe they're ever going to change it. But this is the final episode about this particular topic, about the parties not giving you what you want, not representing their constituents. And as you can see, these 10 examples, there's one weak one in there, but these 10 examples are really pointing out the fact that we're no longer being represented by the leadership of the party. It is no longer something that we can sit back and say, yes, they're doing what we want. They're fighting for my values. Because these 10 things we agreed on, not as a party, but across the board as Americans. All of them have these huge, huge majorities that wanted change. And they didn't do it. They didn't do what the party members wanted, and they didn't do what the Americans want. And they continue to not do it. This poison pill in this last topic of the voter ID, that was easy. Don't stick it in, and the bill passes easily in the House. I don't think it would have passed in the Senate. I think they're too corrupt for that. But the idea that now it's just sitting in the Senate, not going anywhere, well, there you have it. That's the true intent. I'd like for everybody to at least bring up to their candidates the idea that they're not doing what we want them to do when they make it into the office. And I just wonder if we can't get some momentum some grassroots momentum going on this. We need these things fixed. And I'm going to come out with a list of the top 5 supported changes by Americans, not by party, but by Americans, post fairly often, because I think we need to get some of these things taken care of. We need to get back to being a representative republic instead of just a, what was the word? Corporatocracy, which is where we seem to be heading. Grok, thanks for joining me today. Hopefully you'll get back to realizing that there are more things that we want as a country than there are things that are divisive of us. I hope that you have a fantastic day yourself. I hope that you find peace, love, and dream. Until next time, lahi throat.